Well, for today's episode of Attachment Theory in Action, we are going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about attachment as it relates to our children's sleep and sleep behavior. I am very excited today to welcome Maria Domenech Florit. Maria is a certified pediatric holistic sleep coach and founder of Embrace and Nurture. She supports families that struggle with their baby and children's sleep, from frequent night wakings to transitioning from a sleep space to another, and anything in between. She uses an attachment-focused approach that is well known in Europe, and she is originally from Spain. Her background is in psychology and music therapy. She has always been very interested in child development and previously worked with many families, but it wasn't until her own son was born and they struggled with sleep that she became passionate about babies and children's normal sleep behavior. She was familiar with this connection-focused approach to sleep since being from Spain, so she decided to get certified and implement small changes in her own home to improve her son's sleep, and the changes were incredible. She saw the gap and the need in the US for this type of service, which led to her creating her own company. She now provides remote one-to-one services and can work with families around the world. She is very passionate about what she does and states that the best part of her job is not only seeing the progress that families make, but the increase in confidence that parents gain throughout the process and in the improvement they make while still honoring their instincts. Welcome, Maria. We are so excited to have you on the Attachment Theory in Action podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
So I'm excited today because this is kind of a different area for us to be thinking about attachment as it relates to our children's sleep and their sleep behaviors and patterns and also our adult behaviors and patterns too. So I'm excited for us to delve into this topic. But my listeners know I always start with the same question, and that is, tell us a little bit about your story. What led you down this path, and how did it come about that you were bringing attachment theory into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's something that I have been thinking a lot about. So first of all, well, I'm from Spain, although I live in Colorado, and my background is in psychology and music therapy, and I was always very interested in child development. I worked with a lot of families prior to becoming a holistic sleep coach, not in the sleep realm, but I work with a lot of children with autism and their families. And everything kind of came down to when I had my child, right? We found that my husband and I were struggling to see each other eye to eye because he had some perspective, although we spoke in theory beforehand, but then when you find yourself into practice, that's sometimes hard. And we struggled with my little son's sleep. Like it was very, very difficult. He had colic, so he cried for hours on end. We bounced on a yoga ball for literally hours. Nothing would soothe him. We would go on walks, try carrying him like with a baby carrier, like literally nothing. And then this kind of slowly faded away, but sleep was always a very challenging piece. And everything that we were reading, it just didn't resonate with me. Like I was feeling very strong about attachment. I always wanted to make sure that I had a very strong attachment with my child. And I just felt like a very strong instinct to respond to him. So everything that I was reading was not making sense for me, except that in Spain, we do have a different type of current that is very responsive and more child-led. So I was coming with all those ideas. And then my husband was looking on Google.com. I was like, why can't I find this? It's like, I don't know. But really, like from our own struggles with sleep and wanting to support my child in a still very responsive way that felt right, following my instincts and still being very responsive to him. That's how I started researching into that, and I found the holistic sleep coaching program, which was incredible. I learned so much, and obviously I started putting into practice most of the things with my son, and we started seeing a huge improvement. And we went from like what was normal with him was about, I would say, 5 to 8 wake ups every night. But that was not only if he was going through a developmental leap or anything like that. It was just like his baseline. Sometimes it would be more than that. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then thinking about it too, which is funny, lately I have been thinking about it too, is like when I was a kid, I also slept with my parents until I was about 10, which is, I feel a little embarrassed to say that, but I think that also brings me a lot of empathy for those families that are going through those type of situations where maybe their child just keeps waking up and running into their bed and they just don't know what to do to help them sleep in their own space, right? And feel comfortable and safe there. And I mean, I was there as a child, and I know that my parents did everything they could, but there was not so much knowledge back then. And I know that they love me, but I just remember feeling very scared during those moments and those nights, and I was not looking forward to nighttime. So sometimes I wonder how much, which I'm sure is related. I have never explored it, but how much of that has also influenced the way I do things. But it's great. I feel great that I have found this path that is, so attachment focused and still improves child sleep. So I really love that.
Well, thank you for sharing some of your story and your journey so far. You know, I want to bring out a couple of the things that you've said, and let's dig into them a little bit more. And so, first of all, the emotional responsive piece that you described, this being responsive to your child, right? Because to me, that is one of the foundational pieces of attachment, is that we are emotionally responsive. We're emotional partners for our children while they need us, so that they can switch off that back brain response and then continue to feel safe and explore their world and be safe in their world, have this feeling of safety, right? And I feel like sleep is one of those really, and you mentioned it. You said, as a parent, we thought we knew, or we'd had all this information, but when you're in it, in the moment, it can be completely different. And I think that sleep, for the whole context of sleep and sleep training and all of that, for parents, there is so much out there that can be so very confusing, and you really are left with what am I supposed to do? And so I love that when you were going through this, you realize, I still want to be responsive to my child.
Right.
But I also hear you saying that from the attachment perspective, we also want our child to start to become independent, but know that they can come to us. And so there's this balance of, when you're struggling during sleep time, you can come to me, I will respond to you. But I also want you to grow and feel safe in your own space, to use your words, right? And I also love that you're reflecting on your own experiences in childhood, and we don't have to dive too deep. You said you should do some more research into that. But I do wonder about that attachment experience for you, and if some of that did play into some of your fears.
Oh, I bet it did. Yes, I'm sure. Um, But I also think so. Attachment theory, like we know from research, right? That, as you said very nicely earlier, by being emotionally responsive, we know that this is gonna build a foundation for secure attachment. And children that have a secure attachment, and that means that is built when we are responsive to them within a caring manner, right? And that means day and night. For some reason, society keeps telling us that it's okay to do this during daytime, but somehow it's okay to not do it at nighttime.
Mm.
And children's needs don't stop at nighttime. They don't. And when they wake up, we still need to respond. When they are very little, they still don't seek independence. When they are very, very little, we start seeing some independent signs in toddlerhood.
Mhm.
during the day, but they are always going back. Typically, like if they have a secure attachment, they go and explore and they go back to their safe place, right? Which is usually their primary caregiver.
Mhm.
It's the same at night. Usually, they are not going to be ready immediately for independence. And there's a huge push in our society to teach them independence. But actually, independence, and we know this from research and attachment theory, independence will come slowly as they grow, and we will see those signs on their own. We don't need to push them. Now, that doesn't mean that they naturally, toddlers are very curious. I mean, you have a 2-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, they are curious. And our job is to not helicopter parent, is to provide a safe space for them to really explore and start practicing that independence, but they need still our safetiness. And you
Mhm.
think about it, nighttime is a vulnerable state, right? Like everything is dark. I don't know if you have noticed this with your child yet, but since my child turned just before he was turning 2, he started being very aware of nighttime and dark. Like now
Mm.
he sees a room that is dark at night and he's like, light, light, light. And he just wants that light, right? It's a vulnerable state and they are seeking that safety net. So it's very important to provide that response because what you are doing by being emotionally responsive and sensitive to their needs is you are building trust and you are making them feel safe and loved. And that's really gonna be supportive of healthy sleep habits. And as they grow, they are gonna learn to become more independent. Like my child is 2, but I haven't really taught him to be independent, sleep, or connect cycles. Like they naturally will learn those things. Like that doesn't need to be confused and not providing those safe spaces for them to explore. We definitely need to do that. But also, I believe that we don't have to push it because we know from research that children that grow with a secure attachment are going to be more likely to explore their environment and be more independent as they grow older and also build safe attachments with other people and relationships that they are going to have later in life.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm so thankful that you brought up the point of that we are doing things during the day to support the secure attachment, but at nighttime, it seems like actually no, our kids just have to deal with that themselves, and that we shouldn't, be responsive to them through the nighttime period. I until speaking to you about this, I've never even thought about it from that perspective. And as a parent and working in this field, never even as I went through this process, never thought about applying the same theory at nighttime. And I feel so silly now because, as you also identified, it's nighttime, it's dark. Back brain behaviors, that fight, flight, freeze survival mode is going to be kicking in even more quickly than it would during the day.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I do. I feel kind of like, why on earth did I not even think about this before now?
Most people don't. Most people don't. But I think it makes so much sense, right? It's like, well, their needs don't stop, and if anything, they may need us even more because it's a vulnerable state, and there's something about nice safety, like when they feel safe with us, right? Like I work with a lot of families in kind of those situations. Maybe their child is not feeling safe in their own space, and they keep waking up at night and running into their parents' room, and the only way for them to sleep through is by bed sharing, and maybe that's not what the family wants. So helping them make transitions very gently while still keeping that responsiveness piece,
Mhm.
and supporting them and also adjusting little things throughout the day to help calm down their nervous system, that's huge. And we have seen incredible results. So that's why I'm such a huge advocate for responsiveness. And I want the world to know we can improve sleep, but still be responsive to our children's needs. We definitely can.
I I hope for all the parents out there that that is good news for them, that they are hearing that. Um, let's talk a little bit more. You just said about some things that we could implement throughout the day. So tell us a bit more about your thoughts and what kind of suggestions that you make with families, or what kind of work that you suggest that they do either during the day or even then in those wind down windows before bedtime. What are some things that can help?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, one of the things that we'll look into is sleep pressure. So, one of the things that I look into when I work with families is like, okay, let's try figuring out how many hours does your child need to sleep in a 24-hour period. So, that's going to be key. Why is that so important? Because although from research we know that there's ranges that certain children in certain age will sleep certain numbers of hours, that's great as a guide. But essentially, every child is different. And the same with adults, right? Like maybe I'm just making this up, but maybe you need 9 hours of sleep overnight, and I might need seven, but you are fine with nine, and I'm okay with seven. So that's what we personally need. And children are the exact same. So the first thing that we do is check all of these things. Then we look at how much exercise are they eating? Sorry, eating. How much exercise are they getting? What is their nutrition? Light exposure. So some of the things that parents can do to optimize sleep is, aside obviously from identifying their child's specific needs for sleep, so that they can better understand how long should naps be, where they should be spread, and same with nighttime. One thing that I usually recommend is dimming the lights about 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. That's because what that's doing is signaling our bodies to produce melatonin, which is the hormone that is getting us ready. It's not going to make us fall asleep, but it's getting our bodies ready to feel sleepy and kind of get ready. About an hour before bed or so, well, usually I tell parents like after you eat dinner, allow for a little bit of time for them to do big body play, get all the last burst of energy out that they need. And then before you start the bedtime routine, have about 10-15 minutes of a wind down time. That doesn't mean that playing stops, but we are going to change the mood. Maybe you put soft music or essential oils if that's what you are into. And all flashy toys are gonna be away, like loud toys, things like that. And we're gonna switch our voice to a more soft tone to cue our child, like, okay, it's time to calm down. We are gonna switch towards different type of activities. So we are still gonna play, but it's gonna be more calm. And I always tell parents, imagine that children have a love bucket. And having it full throughout the day is what is making them feel loved and safe. And this is going to be extremely important for them to feel safe and calm at bedtime. So I always tell them during this wind down, imagine that you have to overfill this love bucket with all the connection, no distractions, no phones, no TVs, not even the TV in the background, even if you are not listening to it, just turn it off and just play with your child. These can look very different based on the age. If they are very little babies, you might just do skin to skin, a lot of eye contact, cuddles, rocking. You can do farm baby massage, things like that. Physical contact is extremely beneficial for helping their body systems to calm down and regulate. As they grow older, you might start reading books. You may cuddle, you may sing songs together. You still keep eye contact. And then as they start to seek more of that independence that we were talking about, once they grow older and you start seeing those signs of independence and seeking that control, right? I always tell parents, like, as adults, we typically want to be in control in what we do, right? We like knowing what comes next,
Mhm.
unless we tell children they don't know, right? And they just have to do whatever we tell them. And they reach an age around toddlerhood where they are seeking more of, they explore the independence and they are seeking more of that control. So one thing that I recommend parents, and we have seen great success, is during this wind down, allow your child to lead. This is something you can do different throughout the day. You can always give options, but especially during that time, maybe the parent wants to read books, but the child wants to play, I don't know, with dolls or cars, whatever. Just kind of follow their lead. Give them that time. And you can also, when you do bedtime, you can also give choices. Like, do you want this diaper or this diaper? Do you want these
Mhm.
PJs or these PJs? You are still in control because you choose those two options. And there will be things that you may not be flexible. Like maybe you don't let them drink a full glass of water before bedtime, right? But there are things that we can give them that bit of control. And that really helps them feel safe and trusted and loved. And when we dedicate this one-on-one quality time with them, we are not only making them feel loved and secure, but what we are essentially doing too is we are calming their bodies, their nervous system down, which is gonna be what we want for them to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Mm, mm. I love all of those suggestions, and I'm so glad to hear in my mind as a parent that I am doing some things right
That's great.
with our 2-year-old. What you've just described, when I think about attachment and a secure attachment, I think about we kind of use the description of experiences of safety, comfort, and reciprocal joy. And what you've just described to me really hits on all of those pieces. That, by our presence, we are sending the message to our children that we are here, that they are safe, that we are taking care of them. They don't have to be in survival mode. Somebody's here taking care of those needs.
Right.
And then shifting towards that offering of choices where we're still in control, and that the message is still I'm in charge, but you have a little bit of say in this because
Right.
we're in this together. And then the comfort, the dimming of the lights, the closeness, maybe it's bath time, and that then speaks to that regulatory system. We're co-regulating through not only ourselves but the environment around us as well.
Absolutely.
And telling that nervous system, okay, it's time for us to move towards a quieter state of regulation, which I love. And I kind of, what I feel like I hear you saying is a couple of things. One is every child is different, of course,
Right.
but also sometimes our kids might need more of one thing than another. Like I think of my own toddler, and things change, but we do the wind down routine and offer those opportunities for the large muscle movements. But sometimes we get through that, and then she wants more of the large muscle stuff. Like she wants to ride her bike around. And so I'm like, okay, maybe we need to do a little bit more of the large muscle stuff before we start the wind down. And it's about being attuned to your child.
Exactly. Yes, that's what I speak and talk to parents all the time, right? Like checking, observing their cues. As you said, right? Like maybe we need a little bit more of that, or, kind of going back to the sleep pressure piece, like could she maybe need a little bit of a later bedtime or things like
Mhm.
that? Like obviously we will need more details, but those are the things we are looking into beforehand. So yes, I love how you explain that, because that is one thing that we talk so much about, and not trying to stick to schedules, which is so easy, right? Because having a set schedule that you can attach to from Google, and I have done this myself. Like I did it when my child was a newborn, and boy, it did not work for us. But it's just so easy, right? Because it makes us feel that we are in control,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
we are missing a huge piece, and is what our child needs. So
Mhm.
that's where the piece you were just talking about comes into play. And I love that you talk about co-regulation. I speak I talk to parents all the time about co-regulation because it's so important. It really is.
Yeah, and what we know is we need to be regulated ourselves to give our children that regulation piece too. And we had mentioned this in our previous conversation, and that we can talk. Let's talk a bit more about the adult regulation piece. But first of all, for all of our parents or caregivers out there that are listening, I just want to say to them, we are all human,
Yes.
and I have absolutely been in the position where I am just too dysregulated by, and it takes so much it takes so much reflection to say, who I was trying to control the situation too much. In my head, I just needed my child to go to sleep, and that didn't help the situation. That made me more dysregulated. And then if she's upset, then I'm more dysregulated. And so just to give those out there grace that we've all been in these situations, and we know that it's easier said than done.
100%. And I will always tell my parents, like, listen, I'm going to explain all of this, and we are not perfect. And I know all these things, and I struggle at times. I mean, they will sometimes test our limits and they find them, and we are so stressed and we have busy lives. And a huge piece is we have this long to-do list of responsibilities that we want to get done before bedtime, right? And it's sometimes very easy to go into that default mode where we are just stressed. Like when I reflect back, especially when my child was a newborn and into the first year of life, really, I think the exact same things. Like I was so not regulated. So how could my son calm down if we were all stressed out?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, absolutely. Like we are all humans and we are not perfect by any means. And we all fall into those patterns at times. So absolutely. It's just more of having that awareness and trying to catch it and having little tools to support that state. So those are the things that we talk about. It's not about doing things perfect because we won't. It's like I always tell parents, like, we want to have like some steadiness with and like follow certain patterns for schedules and things like that. Once we find what works for your child, but there's always going to be a grace period, right? Because if we also live in with that tension of like, oh, my son needs to be in bed by 8 and it has to be 8, that also creates a lot of pressure on us. And then we don't get to do a lot of things. We gotta be a little flexible as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, when I think about attachment, one of the things that we promote is meeting our kids where they're at in this with an unconditional kind of perspective. And so we could even say that if we are so inflexible with our like bedtime or bedtime routine, that we're not, as you said, we're not really meeting our kids where they're at. We're not doing it unconditionally. We're putting so much of our own stuff and agenda onto it. And I'm not saying it has to be all child led, but
Right.
there needs to be some balance and flexibility.
Exactly. Exactly. Flexibility is gonna be your best friend here.
Mhm, mhm. So, what else can parents or caregivers do to boost their own regulation?
Yeah. So that's another piece that I talk with parents a lot about, the correlation piece and how to try and manage that. So we look into their rhythms and what are their routines. Some of the things, and I will suggest different things based on like each family, right? But some of the things sometimes it's like try to exercise as much as you can. Not as much as you can. You don't have to, you know, go all in and exercise like crazy, but like try to get the sun exposure. Like when I mean exercise, you may go on a walk and it can be a stroller walk, or you
Hmm.
can use a baby carrier, but get some light exposure in. You also like towards bedtime. One of the things that I always recommend is if both parents are at home, then maybe the person that puts baby to bed can be in charge of cleaning dishes and kind of cleaning the kitchen, things like that. And then the parent that does not put baby to bed, like I always say, like if before you put baby to bed, the other partner could maybe get the bedtime routine going so that you can have a little bit of time to physically and mentally prepare. So what I tell parents is like try to get all your to-dos done, like get it out of your system, because if not, that really impacts your, and it happens to all of us, right? Like I'm the first, like I'm very type A, so I'm very, very organized and I have my to-do list. But if you can get all the things done so that you are not thinking and stressing out about all the things you have to do after you put your baby to sleep. So I
Hmm.
tell them like try to get your to-dos done and get physically ready. So use the toilet, put your PJs on, brush your teeth, get ready, and then emotionally ready. Because sometimes we work through periods where those moments are stressful and not necessarily enjoyable. So I want them to emotionally prepare for that. They can really use reaffirming sentences to them, to themselves, like, I'm a good parent, this is temporary, or really whatever. Like what they tell them themselves doesn't matter so much to me. It's more like the effect that it has on them. It has to be something meaningful that brings peace to them. Um, I suggest like they can listen to relaxing music or a guided meditation or take deep breaths, do a few yoga stretches or things like that. And it doesn't have to be an hour long or 30 minutes long. It can be short, or depending on the parent and their situation, they might quickly journal and just get out all their thoughts before they get into that state so that they can feel a little bit more regulated. And what happens is co-regulation essentially, I like to think about it as a nervous system helping another nervous system to calm down, right?
Hmm.
And if we are not calm, babies are masters and children are masters at picking up on those tensions and anxieties. And they will absorb those, and that will make it harder for them to fall asleep. So I always tell them, like, try really hard, almost like pretending it. I'm like trying to still calm because sometimes, and I am guilty of this myself, right? When your child wakes up throughout the night and you're going through a period that is hard, it's so easy to get into the again. And I mean, again, it's one of those things, right? Like we're not perfect. I have done it too. And I sometimes catch myself it's like, I did it, but listen, we're not gonna do things perfect. But if you can be more aware of those things, you will catch it more often and you can try calm down. And that's gonna make your baby calm down too. So what happens is when they're in a moment of distress, children's brains and obviously infants' brains, their brains are immature, so they don't have the ability to calm down from a place of distress. So they need
Hmm.
help with that. So when we are calm and respond to them in a sensitive and caring manner, maybe you pick up your child, you rock them, or you cuddle them, or you just talk softly to them. What you are doing with those cues essentially is that you are cueing their nervous system that they can now calm down and regulate. So we are signaling their parasympathetic system. That's the part of our body that tells us like you are safe, you can rest now, that they can calm down. So literally what happens during those moments is their brain literally builds pathways towards self-soothing that they are gonna slowly learn through repetition and exposure, constant exposure and repetition from parents or caregivers. And they eventually, once they are ready and their brain is more mature, they will learn to do on their own. I mean, self-regulating is something that is hard for adults as well. Like
Hmm.
how many times does it happen to ourselves, like me included, obviously, that we think about it as like, I know I need to calm down, but we are so anxious about something, or we go to bed and for whatever reason, something happened throughout the day we can just stop thinking about, right? And it's going to make it harder for us to fall asleep. It's the same with children. And if it's hard for adults, we can't expect little children to be able to do it on their own unless over time they learn it from us. So we have to be those role models.
And you're making me think about, and I this is if you are in a two parent or two caregiver household, that each supporting each other. So, whoever is not responding to baby at that time, knowing the value of them being that support for the caregiver that is responding, to maybe even, okay, you get woken up from sleep and baby's crying, to just take a moment with that other caregiver and take a breath, and the other caregiver maybe say, it's okay, we got this, being that secure base for your partner.
Absolutely. Yes. I have done this with my partner multiple times. Like sometimes, especially like now our kid is older, so it's a little bit different. But when he was a little baby, and obviously he had colic and we couldn't calm him down, that cry it gets into your head so much because we are wired to respond to our child. We are wired to calm them down. And when you are not able to do it, if there's any parents going through this right now, please know that they will get better. And it's so hard to not see the end at that moment. Like it's so hard. And there were so many times where we were just tapped out. It was like, okay, it's your turn. Like I need a break. And that's okay to do because essentially it's not going to be beneficial for you to be at your limit either. And you're not going to be able to support your child until you can calm down. So taking turns is going to be extremely helpful.
Well, and so I also want to take a second then to think about people who are raising children by themselves, and that we understand that there are single caregivers out there, and I think one thing that my mom even said to me when I had my baby was, and I say this, of course, that there is, you know your child, and you obviously have to make sure that they are physically safe and that their body is safe. But if it takes you 10 seconds to take a breath, to get yourself in the right mind space,
Absolutely.
and take it, and will make such a big difference if you can just check in with yourself first before you then respond. Because I've often wondered how single parents do it, because it is so hard and you don't have somebody to tap you out.
Yeah.
But if your child is safe, and we're talking about being responsive, right? So we're
Right.
not talking about just leaving your child alone. We're not talking about ignoring the child. We're saying take 10 seconds, 5 seconds,
Right.
if you can, to just take a breath, ground yourself, and mentally prepare, in order to be responsive, the best version of you as possible.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what I talk to parents about as well. If they are single parents or they may have a partner, but the partner is not there. Maybe the partner is working. That happened to myself too when I was, well, it happens now too, but again, like right now it's easier. But when he was very little, maybe my husband was at work and I spent many, many hours by myself, and it's hard. And sometimes you need those 10 seconds and it's okay. And one thing I want to emphasize too that you kind of touched on right now is when we also talk about building that secure attachment, we are talking about, being as consistent, being responsive consistently, but it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect and attuned to your baby 24/7 because it really is impossible. Um, there's so much going on. And I remember feeling that when I didn't know so much, I felt like I had to be attuned 24/7. And it's impossible. It really is because we
Right.
have so many things and we might have to go to work or you may have to go to the grocery store or do whatever.
Use the bathroom.
Use the bathroom, yes, or cook. I mean,
Right.
really, like you will have to do things, but it's being consistent with how you respond, but that is not going to be perfect. It's not that it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So we also have to have realistic expectations on what that means. Because just understanding that piece can release a lot of the stress that we put on ourselves, and knowing what these things mean and what to expect, what's normal, what isn't. We also talk about, especially with little ones, um, we talk about what normal infant sleep may look like. They will wake up throughout the night, and that is normal. And there's a huge belief that baby should sleep through the night by 6 months, but that's actually not evidence-based. We have studies that show that even older children over 1, they will still wake up, and that's still very normal. And so kind of talking through those things, I feel like educating on what's actually behaviorally normal and expected, and kind of adjusting those expectations. And I have seen this for myself too. Each realistic, and we also have studies that prove that, right? Actually, like having realistic expectations can really help lower our anxieties and our stress levels. So that's things that we also work on a lot.
And if I might bring us back to something we talked about just a little bit earlier, because I think that this will help with those realistic expectations that, and again, this not being perfect. We're not looking for perfect. We're just really looking for intentional consistency, and I think about how we boost those attachment experiences and that safe feeling of safety during the day or the evening, when we do have more energy, when we are likely to be a bit more regulated, when we don't have to suddenly think on the spot because it's the middle of the night and we've woken up. And I loved your suggestions of, in the evening when we do the wind down, that it's play, but it's a different type of play. So play, like, I think reading stories, is such a big attachment builder, that we've got the safety, the comfort, the joy in the story that we're reading. It's a you and me experience, whether that's baby and mom and dad or aunt and uncle, whoever that is. It's a you and me experience. Are there any other activities that you found that a caregiver can engage in with their child during that wind down period that is really attachment focused?
Absolutely. So, especially with the little ones, something that I see that works very well is skin to skin, having lots of eye contact, cuddling, rocking, just like gentle, right? Like kind of smooth.
Right.
You can even sing during that time, kind of sharing those moments. All of those things are going to be very protective and are going to, if anything, they're going to strengthen your bond. So by any means, it's going to hurt anything. If anything, it's going to improve things. So those are a lot of the things that I suggest parents to do. If you have an older child, like or a toddler, again, like if they are seeking that control and you notice that, just kind of follow their lead. I don't know if you can think of a situation when you were a child and your parents, one of your caregivers maybe play with you. It could be your parents or maybe your grandma or your uncle. It doesn't matter, but that person that you felt safe, that just sat down with you and played what you wanted to play instead of trying for them to lead, because it's so easy. And I catch myself all the time. Like, I will ask my toddler, like, what do you want to do? And sometimes they don't know. So it's so easy for me, like, what if we do this? And sometimes like taking the time to observe and see what they are interested in, what are they into it, and then join in, but allow them to lead. Those are such special moments for them. And it makes them feel special and safe and loved. And they really enjoy that. So having those moments is going to be very important as well. And you can read books. Like with my son, we are now into reading books and cuddling. But there's so many things you can do. It
Well,
just,
and I think body language too. Like if you can't think of an activity necessarily, but it's about, okay, how can I bring a sense of calm? And it's we sit down close to each other, we talk in those quieter tones. So I think I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of, I mean, I work with kids, I'm used to playing with kids, but some people that doesn't come as easy and it's not as
right,
comfortable for them.
right,
And so it's like, okay, you don't necessarily have to come up with some grand activity. It can be, let's just sit next to each other close on the
yep,
floor and maybe you'll play with some blocks or with your
yes,
doll. Like, and I'll just be here with you in the moment because it's
exactly.
reinforcing that object permanency with the child that I'm here. So when you wake up in the night, I know mom or dad is around here somewhere.
Absolutely. And you can even, if you do that, for example, you can narrate what they're
Mm,
doing and try not assume if they, for example, let's say that they do some pretend plays like, oh, your dinosaur is jumping on your head on your leg, or they might give you a cup and it's easy for us to assume like, oh, I'm gonna pretend I drink. But instead
right.
of us assuming what they want us to do, ask, oh, what would you like me to do with this cup? And kind of having those little shifts. And also, what I was talking about, like gently changing the environment, like having the dim lights, soft music. Again, like if you are into essential oils, you can put that, soften your voice because all of these little things are going to be cues to your child that it's time to calm down and kind of get ready for bed because sometimes we expect a lot from children to go from daytime mode to nighttime
Mm,
mode, right? And going to being super active into day mode and rough playing and things like that into bedtime routine can be a huge shift. So having that wind down, it's so beneficial for so many different reasons, but also allowing them a little bit more time, not just for connection, but also giving them cues that it's time to calm our bodies down.
I love that, Maria. And I think about the fact that we also need that. Sometimes it feels like this is so out of our realm and our understanding, but actually it's kind of what we need as well. So it makes sense.
Yeah, our worlds go so fast and we just get so much stimulation and inputs all day long. And I notice it myself, like if I'm very anxious one day, like it's just hard for me to fall asleep and stay asleep. And it's the same for children, right? Like we can't think of them being different. They are human beings, they're just little ones, but essentially they work the same way, you know?
Right.
So
Right. Well, Maria, I can't believe our time is up already. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and I think, a very needed conversation and just a different way of incorporating attachment theory and just so very important. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.